The Ferrari's engine died with a whimper, not a roar, and Sofia Moretti knew immediately that something was wrong. Not with the car. With her. She sat in the driver's seat of the custom blue 488, staring at the construction yard ahead through the morning fog of Milan's industrial district. Her hands gripped the adaptive steering controls so tightly her knuckles had gone white. For 3 years, she'd driven this car like armor, like proof that she was still fast, still in control, still herself. But today, the metal and leather felt like a cage. Before we continue with Sofia's story, I'd love it if you could subscribe to True Spark Stories. Hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. Your support means everything. Sofia pressed the button that opened her door and deployed the automated lift. The mechanism hummed as it lowered her wheelchair to the cracked asphalt. She'd done this 1,000 times. Transfer from seat to chair, lock the wheels, adjust her position, move forward. Automatic. Efficient. Dead. The construction yard was alive with the sounds of men working. Welding sparks, the clang of metal on metal, voices calling out measurements and warnings. But when she rolled toward the main office, the noise seemed to dim. Workers glanced at her, then away. She was used to that. The expensive suit, the chair, the Ferrari. She made people uncomfortable in multiple ways at once. Marco Rossetti stood near a half-built steel frame, watching her approach. He didn't look away like the others. He was older, maybe 50-something, with the kind of weathered face that comes from decades of outdoor work. His hands were stained with grease and paint, and he wore a simple work shirt with the company name stitched above the pocket. Everything about him said ordinary. Except his eyes. "Signora Moretti," he said, nodding once. "You'll hear about the Ferrari." "The hand controls need recalibration," Sofia said, keeping her voice crisp and professional. "I've had 3 different systems installed, and none of them feel right. I brought detailed specifications. If your team can." "When did the tingling start?" Sofia stopped mid-sentence. "Excuse me?" Marco wiped his hands on a rag, but he didn't move closer. "In your legs. The sensations you've been ignoring. When did they start?" Her heart kicked against her ribs. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm here about the car." "I know what you're here about," Marco said quietly. "But the car isn't the problem. It never was." Sofia felt heat rise in her chest. Anger, maybe. Or fear. "You don't know anything about me or my situation. I came for a mechanical service, not unsolicited medical opinions from a construction foreman." "You're right. I'm just a construction foreman." Marco folded the rag and tucked it into his belt. "But I know what it looks like when someone keeps fixing the wrong thing." She should have left. Should have turned her chair around, loaded back into the Ferrari, and driven to one of the other dozen shops in Milan that would take her money without asking questions. But something in his tone held her in place. Not pity. Not presumption. Something else. Recognition. "This is the 4th modification you've requested in 2 years, Marco continued. "Each time, you tell them the controls aren't responsive enough. But the problem isn't response time, is it? You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I?" He finally moved, walking slowly to a nearby workbench. 3 years ago, winter, the Dolomites. Black ice on a mountain road. Your car went off the edge. You were airlifted to Bolzano General. 6 months of treatment. Final diagnosis, permanent lower limb paralysis." Sofia's breath caught. "How do you?" "Because I was there." Marco turned to face her fully. "I drove the rescue truck that pulled you out." The world tilted. Sofia gripped the arms of her wheelchair, suddenly aware of how fast her heart was beating. "That's impossible. I don't remember you." "You wouldn't. You were in shock, bleeding, asking the same question over and over." He paused. "Can I move? Can I still move?" The memory slammed into her. Fragmented, brutal. The smell of gasoline and pine. The taste of blood. The crushing fear that she would never feel her legs again. And a voice. A man's voice, calm and steady, saying, "You're going to be okay. Stay with me." "I asked everyone that," Sofia whispered. "The paramedics, the doctors, the nurses." "You did more than ask," Marco said. "You tried to stand." "No." Sofia shook her head. I couldn't. They told me not to move. Spinal precaution protocol. They told you not to move after you'd already tried. Marco's voice was gentle but firm. I was holding the driver's side door open. You reached for my hand. Your legs were moving. Not much, but moving. Then the paramedic sedated you, and I never saw you conscious again. Sofia felt like she was falling, even though she was sitting perfectly still. That's not possible. The doctors said the damage was complete. Irreversible. They showed me scans, explained the science. I did everything they recommended. Physical therapy, experimental treatments, consultations with specialists across Europe. Everyone agreed. Permanent. Everyone agreed it was safer to assume permanent, Marco corrected. That's not the same thing. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. No, I'm not. But I've spent 30 years in construction, and I know the difference between something that's broken and something that just needs the right person to believe it can be fixed. He moved to a battered metal cabinet and pulled out a small wooden box. I kept something. I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. He opened the box and held up a delicate silver bracelet. Even from several feet away, Sofia could see the word engraved on it, *veloce star. Fast. Her hand went instinctively to her left wrist, where the bracelet had lived for 5 years before the accident. Where did you get that? It fell off when you tried to stand. I picked it up after they took you away. I told myself I'd find a way to return it, but... Marco closed the box gently. I couldn't forget the look in your eyes that night. You weren't ready to give up. They made you. They saved my life. They did. And then they stopped asking if you could do more than survive. Sofia's vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. I've built an entire life around this. An entire identity. I run a tech company that creates accessibility software. I give talks about resilience and adaptation. I inspire people. I know. I've seen your TED Talk. Then you know that what you're suggesting is insane. If you're wrong, if this is just phantom sensations or wishful thinking, then what? I look like a fool? I give false hope to thousands of people who look up to me. And if I'm right? Marco asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them like a living thing. Sofia looked down at her hands. They were shaking. I don't know if I can survive being wrong about this. About myself. Come back tomorrow, Marco said. Without the Ferrari. Why? Because I need to know if you're willing to question everything you've accepted as truth. Including yourself. Sofia didn't sleep that night. She lay in her accessible apartment in the center of Milan, staring at the ceiling, feeling sensations she'd trained herself to ignore. A tingle in her left calf. Pressure in her right thigh. Heat spreading from her hips downward. Phantom responses, the doctors had called them. Neurological echoes. Meaningless. But what if they weren't? At dawn, she called a taxi. The Ferrari stayed in the garage. When she arrived at the construction yard, Marco was waiting. He'd cleared a space in one of the workshops, away from the main work area. Natural light poured through high windows. The floor was clean concrete, level and unobstructed. No medical equipment. No therapy tables. Just empty space. You came, Marco said. I don't know why. Sofia rolled herself into the workshop. She'd dressed differently today. No designer suit, just simple black pants and a gray sweater. She felt exposed without her armor. Yes, you do. Marco pulled up a simple wooden stool and sat down, not across from her but beside her, at eye level. You came because yesterday, for the first time in 3 years, someone told you that maybe, just maybe, the story isn't finished. The story is finished. I've accepted that. I've moved on. Have you? Marco's voice was kind but relentless. Or have you just gotten very good at adapting? Sofia's jaw tightened. Adaptation is survival. It is. But there's a difference between adapting to reality and adapting to what someone else decided reality should be. They were doctors, Marco. Experts. They knew what they were doing. I'm sure they did. But experts make decisions based on risk assessment. And the safest decision is always to tell someone not to try. He leaned forward slightly. Did anyone ever ask you to try standing again? Really try? After the initial physical therapy? Sofia opened her mouth to say yes. Then closed it. She thought back through 3 years of appointments, consultations, follow-ups. The conversation had always been the same: adaptation strategies, assistive technology, psychological support for acceptance. Never, let's see if we can push further star. No, she admitted finally. They said it would be cruel. False hope. False hope is hoping for something impossible. This isn't impossible. It's just hard. And expensive. And time-consuming. And uncertain. Marco stood and walked to the center of the empty space. All things that medical systems don't like. So what are you proposing? Some kind of miracle? No. I'm proposing the truth. He turned to face her. I think in the chaos of that night, in the rush to stabilize you and protect your spine, everyone made the safest call. Don't move. Don't risk it. And that call became permanent without anyone stopping to ask if it should be. Sofia felt her chest constrict. I have titanium rods in my spine. Hardware. Scar tissue. Real damage. I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying damage and death aren't the same thing. And nobody bothered to find out which one you had. And you think you can? No. I think you can. Marco gestured to the open floor. But not from that chair. Sofia stared at the space between them. 10 feet of concrete that might as well have been a canyon. If I try this and fail, then you'll be exactly where you are now. Except you'll know. And knowing is better than wondering for the rest of your life. She closed her eyes. Felt the tingling again, stronger now. Or maybe she was just letting herself feel it for the first time. What do you want me to do? Today? Nothing dramatic. I just want you to tell me what you feel. He knelt down in front of her wheelchair. I'm going to ask you some questions. Don't think. Just answer. Can you feel this? He held his hand 6 inches from her left shin, not touching. No. How about now? He moved his hand to hover near her knee. Maybe. Warmth. Good. That's good. He shifted to her right leg. Here. Pressure. I think. I'm not sure. Don't analyze it. Just report it. His voice was calm, methodical. When you wake up in the morning, before you transfer to the chair, do you ever feel anything unusual? Sofia hesitated. This felt like confession. Sometimes. Pins and needles. Like my legs are asleep. How often? 2 or 3 times a week. I thought it was circulation. It might be. Or it might be nerves trying to reconnect. Marco sat back on his heels. When you dream, do you ever walk? The question caught her off guard. Yes. Almost every night. And in those dreams, do you remember what it feels like? The mechanics of it. Sofia nodded, not trusting her voice. That's muscle memory, Marco said softly. Your brain hasn't forgotten. It's been waiting for permission to try again. Tears spilled over before she could stop them. I'm scared. I know. Not of falling. Of hoping. Hope is terrifying, Marco agreed. Because it means you might have to let go of the story that's been keeping you safe. Sofia wiped her face with the back of her hand. What was your wife's name? The question clearly surprised him. Julia. Why? You mentioned you lost her. I read about it online last night. Misdiagnosed illness. By the time they caught it, too late. Sofia met his eyes. This isn't about me, is it? Not entirely. Marco was quiet for a long moment. Julia went to 3 different doctors. All of them told her the symptoms were stress. Anxiety. Nothing serious. She believed them because they were experts. And by the time someone actually listened, he didn't finish the sentence. So yes, maybe this is partly about her. About the regret of not questioning authority when my gut told me something was wrong. I'm not your second chance at saving her. No. You're your own chance at saving yourself. I'm just the person who happened to be there both times you needed someone to say, try harder. Sofia looked down at her legs. They looked the same as always. Thin from disuse but not atrophied. Covered in expensive fabric that hid the truth of what lay beneath. If I do this, she said slowly, I can't do it publicly. I can't have cameras, social media, people watching and waiting to see if the tech mogul can walk again. The pressure would destroy me. Agreed. And I need you to promise me something. What? If we try this and it doesn't work, if I'm wrong and the doctors were right, you won't look at me with pity. You won't apologize for giving me hope. You'll just, let it be. Marco extended his hand. Not to shake, just offering. I promise. Sofia stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. His grip was solid, calloused, real. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. We start tomorrow. No, Marco said gently. We start now. He stood, still holding her hand, and pulled a nearby workbench closer. I'm not going to ask you to stand. Not today. Today, I just want you to shift weight. That's all? That's everything. Because weight shift is the first step to everything else. Sofia positioned her wheelchair at an angle to the workbench. Her hands found the edge of the bench, solid wood worn smooth by years of use. Marco moved to her side, close enough to catch her but not touching. On 3, he said. 1. Her heart hammered. 2. This was insane. 3. Sofia pushed. For a moment, nothing. Then, like a door opening after years of being sealed, something responded. Not full movement. Not even close. But resistance. Tension. Life. She gasped. Did you see that? I felt it, Marco said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Your legs engaged. Sofia looked down. Her feet were still flat on the footrests. Nothing visible had changed. But inside, beneath skin and muscle and scar tissue, something had woken up. Oh my God. Don't stop, Marco urged. Try again. Same motion. She pushed again. Harder this time. And again, the response came. Stronger. Clearer. I can feel it. I can actually feel it. Tears streamed down her face now, unchecked. Why didn't anyone tell me this was possible? Because asking was too risky. And you were too successful at adapting to make them question their decision. Marco's hand hovered near her shoulder, ready but not controlling. This is just the beginning, Sofia. The real work starts tomorrow. She nodded, unable to speak. Her entire body was shaking now, not from weakness but from the sheer weight of possibility. For 3 years, she'd been certain. Now, certainty had cracked, and light was pouring through. Outside, the construction yard continued its normal rhythm. But inside the workshop, everything had changed. The news spread faster than Sofia expected. Not because she told anyone, but because her assistant noticed she'd cancelled all her Ferrari service appointments. Then her business partner saw her leaving the office early 3 days in a row. Then her mother called, worried because Sofia sounded different on the phone. What's going on? Elena, her business partner, cornered her in the office kitchen on Friday morning. You've been distracted all week. The investor meeting yesterday, you barely said anything. That's not like you. Sofia poured herself an espresso, buying time. I'm fine. Just tired. Tired? You're the person who works 18-hour days without blinking. Try again. I've been doing some physical therapy. It's intensive. Elena's expression shifted to concern. Is something wrong? Are you in pain? No. The opposite. Sofia took a sip of the bitter coffee. I'm trying to see if I can regain some function in my legs. The silence that followed was deafening. Sofia, Elena said carefully, we've talked about this. Remember 2 years ago, when you spent 6 months on that experimental treatment in Switzerland? You came back devastated. This is different. How? Because I'm not paying doctors to give me hope. I'm just trying. Elena pulled up a chair, her face serious. Who's pushing you to do this? Is it some new specialist? Because I swear, if someone is taking advantage of you. No one's taking advantage of me. If anything, I'm taking advantage of someone's honesty. Sofia set down her cup. A man who was at my accident, who saw something the doctors didn't follow up on, asked me a simple question. Did anyone ever tell you to try again after they said it was permanent? They said it was permanent for a reason. They said it was permanent because it was safer to assume permanence than to risk me getting hurt trying. There's a difference. Elena shook her head. You're a role model, Sofia. Thousands of people look up to you because you've shown them how to build a life with disability. What happens if you succeed? Do they all feel like they haven't tried hard enough? And what happens if you fail? Do they watch you fall apart? The words hit harder than Sofia expected because she'd thought the same things herself at 3 in the morning when doubt crept in. I can't live my life based on what other people need me to be. Yes, you can. You already do. That's what leadership is. Sofia stood abruptly. Then maybe I'm tired of leading. Maybe I want to just be a person who's trying to walk again. She left the office without looking back. That afternoon, Dr. Ricky, her primary physician for the past 3 years, called her in for an emergency appointment. Sofia knew Elena had contacted him. Signorina Moretti, Dr. Ricky said, his tone gentle but firm, I understand you've been experiencing some new sensations. Elena told you. She's concerned. As am I. He pulled up her medical files on the screen. We've been through this before. Phantom sensations are common in spinal injury patients. They don't indicate recovery. They're simply the nervous system's attempt to process incomplete signals. What if they're not incomplete? What if they're exactly what they seem, signals? Dr. Ricky removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. I don't want to see you hurt again. The last time you pursued aggressive treatment, you spent months in depression afterward. The psychological toll. The psychological toll of trying is mine to bear. Not yours to prevent. I'm your doctor. It's my job to protect you. From what? Hope. Sofia leaned forward. Answer me honestly. When you declared my condition permanent, did you do every possible test to confirm nerve death? Or did you make a clinical decision based on typical outcomes and risk management? Dr. Ricky's silence was answer enough. I thought so. Sofia stood. I'm not angry at you. You did what you thought was right. But I'm 28 years old, and I deserve to know if there's even a chance before I spend the next 50 years wondering. And if this person you're working with is wrong? If you damage yourself further? Then I'll deal with it. But at least I'll know I tried. She left his office feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. That evening, her mother called. The conversation was worse. Sofia, Tesoro, please listen to me, Maria Moretti's voice cracked over the phone. I watched you suffer after the accident. The pain, the surgeries, the heartbreak of accepting what happened. I can't watch you go through that again. Mama. No, let me finish. You've built something beautiful from tragedy. You help people. You inspire them. Why would you risk that for something that might not even be possible? What if accepting was premature? Her mother was crying now. I just want you to be happy. I know, Mama. But happy and settled aren't the same thing. After she hung up, Sofia sat in the darkness for a long time. Everyone in her life was telling her the same thing. Stop. Protect yourself. Accept what is. They meant well. They loved her. And they were all wrong. The next morning at the construction yard, Marco took one look at her face and knew. They're trying to stop you. Everyone except you. Sofia wheeled into the workshop. My business partner thinks I'm being irresponsible. My doctor thinks I'm delusional. My mother thinks I'm breaking my own heart. What do you think? I think I'm terrified. And I think I have to do this anyway. Marco nodded slowly. Good. Fear means you know it matters. They'd been working together for 2 weeks now. Small progressions, incremental victories. Day 1, weight shift. Day 3, bearing 50% of her weight for 30 seconds. Day 7, standing with full support for 1 minute. Day 12, 2 trembling steps holding the workbench, her legs shaking so badly she thought they'd give out, but they didn't. Every session left her exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. This wasn't like the structured physical therapy she'd done before, with its measured goals and professional distance. This was raw, unfiltered effort. Marco pushed her past the point where doctors would have stopped. Not cruelly, but truthfully. Again, he'd say when she wanted to quit. You can do one more. And somehow, she could. Today felt different. Sofia could sense it in the air, in the way Marco had set up the space. The workbench was there, but farther away. In the center of the workshop, he'd placed two parallel bars, the kind used in traditional physical therapy. Today, Marco said, we're going to try something harder. Sofia's mouth went dry. Walking. 3 steps. With the bars for support. I don't know if I'm ready. You are. Your legs have been getting stronger every day. I've watched you go from 0 weight bearing to supporting yourself for 2 full minutes yesterday. 3 steps is just a continuation. 3 steps is everything. I know. Marco moved to stand at the far end of the bars. That's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this in private, with no cameras, no witnesses, no pressure. Just you, me, and the truth. Sofia positioned her wheelchair at the beginning of the bars. Her hands gripped the parallel supports, cold metal against her palms. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Remember what we practiced, Marco said calmly. Shift weight to your arms first. Then engage your core. Then let your legs remember what they used to know. And if I fall? I catch you. Always. Sofia took a breath. Then another. Then she pushed. Weight shifted. Arms bore the load. Core engaged. And then, impossibly, her right leg moved forward. Not smoothly. Not gracefully. But forward. The sensation was overwhelming. After 3 years of stillness, movement felt like lightning through her entire nervous system. She gasped, nearly lost her grip, but Marco was there instantly, his hands supporting her elbows without taking over. Don't think, he said. Just move. Left leg. Dragging, clumsy, but moving. Right leg again. Stronger this time. That's 3, Marco said, his voice thick. Sofia, that's 3 steps. She looked down at her feet, both planted on the ground a full meter from where she'd started. Her legs were shaking violently, her arms screaming from the effort of supporting most of her weight. But she was standing. And she had walked. I did it, she whispered. You did it. Then her legs gave out. Marco caught her smoothly, helping her back into the wheelchair. Sofia collapsed into it, her entire body trembling, tears streaming down her face. I walked. Oh my God, I actually walked. 3 steps, Marco confirmed, kneeling beside her. 3 steps that everyone said were impossible. Sofia couldn't stop shaking. It wasn't just the physical exertion. It was grief, relief, rage, and joy all mixed together into something too big for her body to contain. They were wrong. They were all wrong. They were careful. There's a difference. No. Sofia looked at him with fierce intensity. They were wrong. And I've lost 3 years because of it. Marco's expression was compassionate but firm. You haven't lost anything. You built an entire company in those 3 years. You helped thousands of people. You survived. What you're doing now isn't erasing that. It's adding to it. Sofia wiped her face. I don't know how to tell people. You don't have to tell anyone. Not yet. Not until you're ready. But eventually. Eventually, you'll walk out of here. And they'll see. And some will celebrate, and some will struggle with it, and some will be angry, and all of that will be their journey, not yours. Sofia nodded slowly. What if I can't do more than 3 steps? What if this is the ceiling? Then 3 steps is a miracle, Marco said simply. But I don't think it is. I think you're just getting started. He was right. 6 weeks after that first conversation in the construction yard, Sofia Moretti walked into her office building using forearm crutches. The security guard did a double take. The receptionist dropped her coffee. By the time Sofia reached the elevator, half the lobby was staring. She didn't care. The journey from 3 steps to functional walking had been brutal. Some days she managed 20 meters. Other days, her legs refused to cooperate and she spent hours in the wheelchair, crying from frustration. Marco never wavered. Never pushed too hard, never accepted excuses. He'd become something between a coach, a therapist, and a friend. Progress isn't linear, he'd reminded her on the bad days. It's a spiral. Sometimes you circle back to where you started, but you're always a level higher than before. Elena was waiting in Sofia's office, her face unreadable. You're walking. With crutches, yes. Sofia lowered herself into her desk chair, leaning the crutches against the wall. I wanted to tell you when I was sure it would last. It's been 3 weeks of consistent progress. My new physical therapist says the nerve regeneration is remarkable. New physical therapist? What happened to Dr. Ricky? I found someone willing to work with what is, not what they assumed would be. Sofia met her partner's eyes. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I needed to do it without everyone's opinions and fears in my head. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. I've been an idiot. What? I was so worried about you getting hurt that I forgot who you are. You're the person who built a tech company from nothing. Who turned a tragedy into a mission. Of course you weren't going to just accept permanent without questioning it. Elena came around the desk and hugged her, hard. I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. Terrified, but proud. Sofia hugged her back, relief flooding through her. I need to make a public statement. But I don't know how to do it without making it sound like disability is something to be overcome or fixed. That's not the message. Then don't make it about that. Make it about the right to keep questioning, keep trying, keep evolving. That's good. Write that down. They spent the next hour crafting a statement together. Not a triumph narrative, but an honest one. I was told my condition was permanent, and I accepted that. But I've learned there's a difference between accepting limitations and accepting incomplete information. I'm sharing my journey not to suggest everyone should pursue recovery, but to advocate for continued assessment and the right to try. The response, when it came, was mixed. Some people celebrated. Some felt betrayed, as if her recovery invalidated their own disabilities. Some accused her of having access to treatments others couldn't afford. All of it was understandable. All of it was hard. But the message that mattered most came from a young woman in Rome who'd been paralyzed in a diving accident. Thank you for showing me I can ask my doctors harder questions. Even if I never walk again, knowing I pushed for every answer gives me peace. That made everything worth it. 3 months after those first 3 steps, Sofia returned to the construction yard one final time. She walked in without crutches, her gait still uncertain but unmistakably hers. Marco was working on a steel beam, his back to her. I'm buying a motorcycle, she announced. He turned, saw her standing there unassisted, and grinned. A motorcycle? Something I have to balance myself. No adaptations. No hand controls. Just me and the machine. What about the Ferrari? I'm donating it to a disability advocacy group in Naples. Someone should use it who needs it. I don't anymore. Marco set down his welding torch and walked over. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful to you. You gave me something no doctor could. What's that? Permission to try. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Sofia pulled the silver bracelet from her pocket, the one that said *Veloce star. I think it's time I wore this again. Marco helped her fasten it around her wrist. It fit perfectly, like it had never been gone. What's next for you? He asked. I'm starting a foundation. Not for miracle cures or false hope, but for second opinions. For funding comprehensive reassessments. For making sure people have every question answered before they're told to stop trying. That's good work. It is. And I have you to thank for it. Marco shook his head. I didn't do anything except believe what I saw that night. You did the rest. Sofia looked around the construction yard, at the place where her life had changed for the second time. I should go. I have a meeting in an hour, and I want to walk there. Then walk. I'll be here if you ever need a reminder. A reminder of what? That the story isn't finished until you say it is. Sofia smiled, adjusted her bracelet, and walked out of the workshop into the bright Milan sunshine. Her stride was imperfect, her balance still required concentration, and she tired more easily than before the accident. But she was walking. And that was everything. That evening, she posted a video to her company's social media. Not polished, not scripted. Just her, standing in her apartment, speaking directly to the camera. My name is Sofia Moretti. 3 years ago, I was told I would never walk again. I accepted that as truth. I built a life around it. I inspired others to do the same. And all of that was real and valid and important. But something else was also true. I had never actually been told it was impossible, only improbable. I'd been told it was safer not to try. And safety became certainty without anyone checking if it should. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm not sharing this to suggest that everyone can or should pursue recovery. I'm sharing it because we deserve complete information. We deserve doctors who keep asking questions. We deserve the right to try, even when the odds are against us. And most importantly, we deserve to write our own stories, not just accept the ones others write for us. She took a step forward, toward the camera. This is me, walking. Imperfectly. Slowly. But walking. Not because I had more money or better access, but because one person asked me a question no one else had: what if they were wrong? She smiled. So to everyone watching, in whatever situation you're in, I want you to ask yourself, what have I accepted as permanent that might just be paused? What story have I stopped questioning? And who benefits from me staying still? The video ended. Within hours, it had been viewed 1 million times. The comments section exploded with debate, gratitude, anger, hope. Sofia read through them all, understanding that her journey had become public property the moment she chose to share it. Some people would use her story as inspiration. Others would use it as a weapon. That was beyond her control. What mattered was that she'd told the truth. Before you go, I want to thank you for staying with Sofia's story until the very end. If this moved you, please subscribe to True Spark Stories, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life, stories that challenge what we think we know about ourselves and what's possible. 2 years later, Sofia stood backstage at a medical conference in Geneva, waiting to give the keynote address. She could hear the murmur of the crowd, over 3,000 physicians, therapists, and researchers. Her hands were steady. Her legs were strong. Dr. Ricky was in the audience. He'd reached out 6 months after her video, asking if they could talk. The conversation had been difficult but necessary. He'd admitted that her case had made him reassess dozens of other patients, made him ask harder questions, push for more thorough evaluations. 3 of them had shown similar potential for recovery that had been overlooked. We're trained to do no harm, he told her. But sometimes we're so afraid of giving false hope that we take away real possibility. Now, as Sofia walked onto the stage without assistance, the audience rose in a standing ovation. She let them applaud for a moment, then raised her hand for quiet. Thank you. But I'm not here to be celebrated for walking. I'm here to talk about the systems that almost prevented it. For the next 40 minutes, she laid out a new protocol she'd developed with a team of researchers. Comprehensive reassessment timelines. Mandatory second opinions for permanent diagnoses. Patient advocacy training. Funding for long-term neural monitoring. The goal, she concluded, is not to promise everyone can recover. It's to ensure no one is told they can't without exhausting every real possibility first. Because the difference between those two things is someone's entire life. After her speech, a young doctor approached her, nervous but determined. Signorina Moretti, I have a patient. Spinal injury, 18 months ago. We declared it permanent, but she keeps asking if there's any chance. I've been telling her to accept it and move forward. After hearing you today, I'm wondering if I should. You should listen to her, Sofia interrupted gently. Really listen. Order new tests. Get a second opinion. Give her the information she needs to make an informed decision about whether to try. That's all any of us want. The truth, not just the safest assumption. The doctor nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you. That night, Sofia returned to Milan. The motorcycle she'd bought was parked in her building's garage, a sleek Ducati she'd learned to ride with the same determination she'd brought to walking. But tonight, she didn't feel like riding. She felt like remembering. She drove to the construction yard. It was after hours, the gates locked, but she could see through the fence. The workshop where she'd taken those first 3 steps was dark. Marco had retired 6 months ago, moved to the coast to be near his daughter. They still spoke every week. You changed my life, she told him on his last day. No, he'd replied. I just reminded you that you could change it yourself. Sofia stood at the fence for a long time, watching the shadows. Then she pulled out her phone and recorded one more message. To anyone who's been told their story is finished, who's accepted a diagnosis as destiny, who stopped asking questions because it seemed easier than hoping, I want you to know something. You have the right to keep trying. You have the right to demand answers. You have the right to question authority, even medical authority, when your gut tells you something isn't complete. She paused, choosing her final words carefully. 3 years ago, I came to this place to fix a car. I left having fixed something much more important, my belief that I had any say in my own story. Whatever you're facing, whatever you've been told is permanent or impossible, please don't stop questioning until you're absolutely certain. Because sometimes the difference between can't and haven't tried yet is just one person willing to ask harder questions. She smiled at the camera. And sometimes, that person has to be you. Sofia posted the video, pocketed her phone, and walked back to her car. The construction yard faded behind her, but its lesson stayed. Not everything broken stays broken. Not every ending is final. And sometimes the most radical act is simply refusing to accept someone else's certainty about your limitations. She drove home through the Milan night, the city lights reflecting off her windshield like stars. Tomorrow she had meetings, foundation work, a dozen people counting on her. But tonight, she just wanted to walk. So she parked 2 blocks from her building and made the journey on foot, feeling every step, grateful for every imperfect stride. Because 3 years ago, she'd been told this was impossible. And she'd learned that impossible often just means no one's tried hard enough to make it possible yet. The story was never about the Ferrari. It was never about the car. It was about a woman who refused to let other people's fear become her ceiling. It was about a construction foreman who remembered what doctors forgot, that seeing someone try is not the same as seeing them fail. And it was about the truth that sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is question the story everyone agrees is finished and dare to write one more chapter. Sofia Moretti walked into her building, pressed the elevator button, and smiled. Not because walking was easy, but because she'd earned every difficult step. And that made all the difference. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If Sofia's journey moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about the limits we accept in our own lives, please take a moment to subscribe to True Spark Stories, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And I'd absolutely love to know where in the world you're watching from. Drop your city and country in the comments below. Your stories and your support mean everything to us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep trying, and remember, your story isn't finished until you say it is.